first, I have a question for y'all. Is anybody in here interested in becoming a voice actor? Oh, goody. Then you're in the right place, because these people can answer a lot of really cool questions for you. So we will get into some really interesting details here in just a minute. I have some questions for ye. So, something that I think a lot of people, some of the actors or would-be actors in the audience might need to know is what makes a good reel? If you are interested in putting forth a combination of your skill sets as an actor, what makes a good demo reel? What do you want to send out?
I think for that, a good demo, first and foremost, the first thing you put in there is your strongest thing. Because a lot of times when you send that out, they might only listen to 10 to 15 seconds. So if you say like, I'm gonna save my best thing for the last, then they go, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing, or this girl's amazing. They might not get there. So always lead with your best foot forward. I always like to have something that kind of sounds like something like you, like yourself. They wanna hear you. I definitely would say that. And yeah, just show your versatility and just have fun. That would be my big things.
Yeah, just make sure you're putting stuff on there that you're definitely comfortable with doing, because you could be potentially doing these voices for upwards of, or hopefully only 4 hours at a time. But, you could be in a session for like an entire week doing 4 hours at a time. So that's going to wear down on your voice. So you want to make sure it's something that you can sustain realistically. So don't put anything on there that's like really gravelly that you can't do for a long period of time, because that's not fun if you have to work an entire week.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, what they're saying is right on the money. I think the only thing I would probably add is give them a little variety, because in today's market, the more different types of voices or intonations you can project with your voice is going to get you more work. So lead with your best and try to give them as much as you can.
Well, I have not. Hello. Okay. I don't really have anything to add because I don't have a reel.
Definitely doesn't need one at this point.
Well, who knows? If I had one, I might do. But no, I don't have a reel. Well, I'm sure we'll get to this in other questions, but I came to doing voice work from theater work, which I had done in New York and thankfully on Broadway. So that was sort of my reel. So I don't know. I would say to anybody who comes from where I came from, just make sure whatever you're doing exemplifies your best assets. And I think that's what they all were saying, too, as far as recording it and putting it out there in the world. That's all I have to say.
Great. I have another quick question. So in terms of being an actor, we've heard recently that it's maybe not appropriate to term you a voice actor. How do you feel about that? Is it more appropriate to just refer to you as an actor? Because that is clearly what you do.
The whole thing has morphed so, hasn't it? I think there was a time that I remember, certainly, when you all were in the crib, but there was a time when there were voice actors, and then there were actors, and TV, and everybody was sort of divided up. But now I think we all know that a lot of people who do on-camera acting also do voice acting, and so on. I don't know if all of you do, but they do. So I don't know. I feel like to identify yourself specifically in that field, I don't find voice actor to be offensive, but I don't know if it's always accurate anymore. That's probably more the issue.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's probably the same thing. I started so young, and I started immediately doing both. Obviously, I started Fievel at the age of 5. So I grew up in this business, and I did Fievel until I was 16 years old. But throughout that, I was doing live action and Full House and all these other TV shows at the time. So I never really saw the difference. I was an actor, whether I was in a recording soundstage or on a set on the Warner Brothers lot. It was kind of all the same. But so I never saw any offense to it. It's whatever the job was.
Yeah, I actually hadn't heard of that being a thing. I think it's more so the fact that like people, you'll have, if you're a voice actor, most people would be like, oh, but do you do real acting? I think that's where the offensiveness comes from. But I've slipped up and said that before sometimes too when I kind of, describe it. Because sometimes I can't think of like, oh, I'm not a stage actor. I'm not, a film actor. I'm a voice actor. So I'll be like, oh, I don't do real acting or whatever. But I don't mean it that way, of course. So I understand when people slip. But I think that's more of where people tend to get a little like angry about the differentiation.
Yeah, nothing new to add. Like, yes, acting is acting. But yeah, for the most part, I do mostly voice acting these days. But I also came from the theater as well, and yeah, I think it's with the whole divide of just all the different things you can do. It makes it easier, and yeah, the only time is that it's offensive is when it's.
You know what I don't like? Who asked me? Is now.
What don't you like, Ken?
No, the idea that all the people in the political arena, like the things going on with the Ukraine and blah, 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 people are referred to as actors, right? Well, the actor, and I'm like, wait a minute. And the first time I heard that, I thought, are they really actors? I mean, what is the thing? And I realized this is like a new terminology for players in the political arena. And I thought, well, I don't know if that's a good thing for us, you know? Anyway, just thought I'd
It
throw
might be
that
good
in.
for Screen Actors Guild, though. I hear they're trying to get
Might be.
involved.
It might be.
I was going to say, can we all agree that that is not a relevant term for politicians then? Yes. Okay, great.
I hope
Great, as long
so.
as we're all on the same page.
Now, for that, I think
That
it's an
happened.
okay thing to be like, have you guys ever thought about real acting? Like, I think that's an.
Zing. All right. I think we're ready to go ahead and kick it off to the audience because we've got a pretty good queue going here. All right, go ahead. Tell us what's your name first.
Hi, I'm Cindy. I came here from Ocala, Florida. Yeah, my husband and I are like professional nerds. I have a question for those of you who have done more than one genre of acting. What are some of the special challenges that you enjoy and don't enjoy of being in a booth with a microphone and no one else, and being on stage with everyone else in an audience where live things can go wrong? And what are some of the challenges that you enjoy and don't enjoy?
For me, I remember when I coming from theater, where you just are a lot of it is like project and all that stuff, and then trying to get into commercial voiceover. The guy that was helping me with that was very patient, but he was just like, "Stop yelling at me." It's like the microphone is an ear, just like so. I'd be like, the thing about dating apps is like, and it's like, so that was a big challenge of learning to do commercial voiceover. From theater, but it actually lends itself very well to anime, and that's like anime is very theatrical, and that was actually one thing that I really love about it. I do really miss not being in a group environment with a lot of it, because that's mostly prelay stuff and not a lot of dubbing things. But yeah, those were some big challenges.
Yeah, I would think what came to mind is the idea when for me, the experiences that I've had. In the booth, I was alone. There was no one in there but me except the director, and in my case, the musical director. And from theater, which is basically my background, I was always used to having this camaraderie and response from people. And all of a sudden, the director would say, like, come in the door. And then you have to go, oh, you're going to come in. You have to respond to basically nothing is what it comes down to. And that took a little minute of sort of readjustment for me, because I was used to responding to something that was given to me by another actor. Maybe by the third day, I was like, who needs other actors? I can do it all myself, And I was liken it to being a child. When you play alone as a child, and you do all the little voices of your little creatures and characters. You go, I'm going to come in the door. No, I'm going to come in the door. And you actually get paid for that when we do it as what we do. But you do it alone, like you did in your room when you were a child. So there is sort of a bridge between the two. But I would say just seriously, the difference, I enjoy doing it alone because it's more concentrated, but I miss the audible camaraderie of another actor.
Yeah, golly, that's a tough one, but he's right. It's just, I was very blessed in the first American Tail, because I was so young, I actually got to do all of my acting with all the other actors, because Steven Spielberg and Don Bluth wanted an authenticity, and because I was so young, they were concerned of that exact thing. At 5, 6 years old, how am I going to be able to react to a wall? So they blessed me with that experience of getting to work with Madeline Kahn and Dom DeLuise and having all these one-on-one conversations because I had the most lines, obviously, in the film. So I was able to do all the songs with them and sing with them, and it made me, as a child, such an easier thing. Five Goes West was kind of like that. They had a little more faith in me on the second one. But, and then on the live action side, I've always thought, for me, film and TV was so easy because, if you messed up, you got another take. Live audience, I was on a show in the 90s called Hang Time for 3.5 years, and that show was a little bit more difficult because we were in front of a live studio audience every Friday night, so you had to be super, super careful. But for me, I would say the hardest thing and the most toughest thing is where you came from. I only had one theater experience. I was truly blessed to do a 2-year run in Les Miserables in Los Angeles as the role of Gavroche for 2 years, and that was the scariest thing I've ever done. Because you go out every single night, and I love all these people, but if I screw up, I got to keep going. There's no changing. There's 3,000 people watching you, so please don't mess up. But yeah, I mean, they all just have different facets, I guess, of little things, but all great.
Erica, anything to add?
I don't, unfortunately, but thank you for your question.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Lisa. So I am building a Dalek that I'm going to be running around and yelling at people. Yeah. And my question is, how do you guys fight voice fatigue? Because it's a very iconic voice, and it's fun yelling exterminate at people, but after a while, you don't have a voice.
That's difficult. That's something I know very well. If you guys know the anime Kill la Kill, it's about 80% yelling, and that was one of my very first like really big things. And I'm generally a pretty quiet person, so I had to learn how to be really loud, really fast. So I learned a lot about taking care of your voice during that few-month period where we were recording that, and just hydrate a lot, make sure you have lots of water, tea. I don't know how equipped you're going to be able to like have all this stuff on hand, but at least water is very good. Like taking breaks, drink tea. Honey is very good, so you just put like tea in the honey, or you can just eat the honey straight, I guess. There is in the anime world, we've kind of come to learn of this Chinese cough syrup called Ninjom Pepa Koa or something like that. And or Fred Tatasciore, if you guys know Fred Tatasciore. He's a video game prelay voice actor mainly, and he plays the Hulk a lot, so it's kind of been like endearingly termed Hulk juice because of that. So it's just a like Chinese loquat honey syrup, and it's very sugary, so don't drink too much of it. But you can put it in tea, you can drink it out of a spoon or eat it out of a spoon. It's a very good like throat coat, so it helps you sustain a little bit. I wouldn't like totally rely on it, but it's good for a just a temporary solution. Just yeah, and make sure you take breaks. Like breaks are very important.
Lots of sleep.
Yeah.
It's very important for sure. And yeah, all those things are great.
I'm generally asked, the things I've done subsequently since the film Nightmare Before Christmas. We do a lot of stuff for, the games in the park and stuff like that. And I asked them to record me in the AM because the character's voice is a little less refined than my voice gets as the day goes on. So I always ask them if they can record me no later than 1 o'clock so I can use my natural voice and not have to create the sound. In the morning, I sound like Dracula, so it helps. So it really helps. But they accommodate that, which is great. And then it's not so much wear and tear. But I agree, lots and lots and lots and lots of water. I just drink as much water as possible while I'm working and try not to, even though it's certainly the sounds they want, this is my only voice. So I say to them often, I say, I'd like to do that, but that's really not in the wheelhouse of what will not harm my voice. So let's find something that will work for both of us. I don't know if they always like that, but I figure I got to use this every time I speak, so I ask for that, but that's my contribution.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the only thing that I would add is kind of the same thing. I know I used to do, especially on the theater side, is sometimes vocal exercises like you would if you were a singer on tour helped a lot, doing those on a daily basis. And then back in the day that we used to, it's probably a similar thing to the Hulk juice or something. There was stuff that you do with hot water and eucalyptus drops. And that seemed to really, really help stimulate the vocal cords and keep them clean. Something you get probably at a GNC or some kind of store, but that was a big help when I was younger. I remember that.
Well, I have to just throw this in quickly. When you said lemon drop, opera singers, friends of mine, turned me on to this. You're gonna love it. Potato chips. Potato chips. Wow. Yeah, opera singers. Now, so musical theater person I am, so I thought they know more than I know, right? And they said because of the oil and the salt. The salt keeps your cords from swelling or whatever. And the oil keeps them lubricated beyond water or whatever. And they said, just eat a bag of potato chips. If I got it.
So wait, is that before a session or after? To like
Before.
Before, okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing.
Isn't that something?
Oh, I'm stealing that.
Hello.
That's in repertoire
Big
now.
old bag of Lay's.
It's like, I'm doing this for my career.
Your next session, the craft service budget went up by like $200. He demanded 40 bags of potato chips. I don't know what happened.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good question. Hi, what's your name?
Gavin, I was just curious, what are some ways you recommend improving your voice range and exploring your voice range?
Try everything. If you can't do it, like you can't do it, your voice is your voice, but you just kind of, impersonate people, see what you can do with it, create your own characters if you can't do a perfect impersonation. Try highs, try lows. That's the right direction, and just that's what I do.
Yeah, I feel like just like watching different things and like I love going to class and stealing stuff from other people that I'm like, that's brilliant. Like, I wonder if I could do that. So just watching different shows and like playing different video games and watching it with like an active mindset where you're just, ooh, that's really cool. I wonder if like what my take would be on that. And just playing around, just always trying stuff.
Yeah, I think they're totally right on it. Actually, what I loved about impersonations, because I wasn't very good at them, but that impersonation was so bad it actually might have turned into something different and a really cool voice that was not supposed to be what it was intended for, but hopefully the other person doesn't know that. So that's the key.
I think I've heard that Hank Azaria, that is how he
yeah, that's
finds
like
all
a
of
lot
his
of The
voices.
Simpsons.
Yeah, like Lou is just his bad Stallone impression
Yeah,
and stuff.
exactly.
And I love all those.
Cool, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, what is your name?
Hi, I'm Lexi. I specifically do characters in head voices. I do a lot of like Pinkie Pie, I do Mako from Kill la Kill. And I find it hard to stay in my head voice at times. Is there a way that like I can train myself to keep it there?
I think just doing it more and just like, or finding like a different place of where you can put it to
Different
get,
placement.
just to, like try different placements of like, because I know like I do that too with when I voice Metal Lee on Boruto. It's really hard to sustain like the raspy highness of him, and I'll always just like as the session goes on, I'll try and make it lower than it actually is, and then the director will be like, oh, hey, actually, I think we're going out of voice a little bit. I'm like, no, I think we're pretty on there, and he's like, oh, yeah, it's way higher than that, so let's do that again. I'm like, ah. So, yeah, it's just practicing and knowing where to place it to get it to a place that you can sustain it for a long period of time.
Yeah, I agree. I think head voices are, if you're not like naturally in there, it's a little hard to like keep that. Like, because kind of like I was saying earlier, like you want to do something that you can sustain for at least 4 hours if you're going to be doing it for that long. Because it's entirely possible you'll be doing it for that long and then have another session afterwards that's like 2 to 4 hours long. So you definitely want to be careful. But Billy's right, I think, just finding a good placement that's more comfortable and then maybe work your way from there afterwards.
Thank you.
Anything to add from the two of you? No? Do a lot of head voice work?
A lot of head voice work. It's my speciality.
Yeah, definitely. Hi, tell us your name.
My name's Colin. I was wondering, where would you say a good place to start would be? Just start voice acting.
Do community theater. Acting is like first and foremost when it comes to voice acting. Hard to believe, I know. And then find the voices from there, I think. So you wanna have a good acting base first, for sure. But other than that, where do you live? Like what state?
Kentucky.
Kentucky. Definitely want to move where the work is eventually once you feel like you've gotten the right skill set. New York is good. Chicago's good for like commercials and stuff. That's where I'm from originally. Texas, if you want to do mostly anime commercials. And LA has got like a whole bunch of different kinds of work. So I think most people kind of strive to eventually go to LA if they want to do like animation stuff. So definitely move where the work is.
But I started in theater as well. I thought that was a great just place to start and just start acting and just having fun. I thought that was great. Improv classes are really fun, and that'll help you so much in creating characters later on in your career. And there's a lot of classes you can take online. And there's a lot of opportunities online, so you can just grab a USB mic and go into your closet with all your clothes, and that'll dampen all the sound. It'll sound great, and you can just start playing around there with stuff too. So yeah.
Yeah, there might be also in this part of the country, Atlanta, Georgia is becoming a pretty big hotspot for film and television. And even on the voiceover side, because all the Marvel movies are made there, so there's a lot of stuff. There's another way that I also got into it is something called ADR, which is basically like background voicing in films and stuff like that. And they're doing a ton of that in Atlanta now. So Atlanta may not be, which is not too far from here by car. After you do the theater thing and sort of get your voice and get your stuff, it has its own world there right now that's kind of growing before you make the big jump to an LA or a New York.
The only thing I could add to that is that somebody once recommended to me to just read aloud, which you don't have to be in the business for. You don't have to go to anybody. Just pick anything, really, and say it out loud. Get used to hearing your own voice. Get used to hearing the instrument that you have. And you can only do that by hearing it. You can't do it by thinking it, if you know what I mean. So really, just read anything. If you're reading a magazine, start reading out loud. Pick Shakespeare, just for the pronunciations and the plosives and things. Do that. Do anything, but just start using your voice so you get used to hearing it yourself. Because generally, people don't realize they're really thinking in their head most of the time. But really do it out loud. And maybe tape it, obviously, so you can hear what it sounds like. But that's something you can do tonight.
Okay. That's a great one, actually. I really wish that I knew that beforehand, because I started just like playing a bunch of video games and being a fan. And I remember after college, I hadn't read a book in like 10 years. And then I'm at a session for one of those ADR things where like the script is going by, the thing is on the screen where the actors are. It was a live action dub for a Brazilian show. And I had just not read a book in a long time, so I was rusty as all get out. And I'm just like trying to like see what the guy's doing and like matching his intensities. And I'm trying to read this thing and not screw up. And it was just like, I started reading a half an hour a day out loud in the morning, the first thing I had to do. And like I've been doing that for 2.5 years now. And now I'm like, okay, I got this. But I wish I had started doing that way, way earlier. So I highly recommend that.
That's a good point, too, because a lot of times you won't get the scripts beforehand, so there's no memorization in most cases that I've experienced anyway. So you need to be good at cold reading. So that's, yeah.
I agree with you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So real quickly, I was very curious. We've mentioned some vocal exercises and this idea of reading aloud to yourself. Can you give us some examples of your favorite maybe vocal warm-ups? Because those are some of my favorite things. And that is just, they're really, really helpful. And I don't know if a lot of people understand, like, there are things that you can do for pronunciation and things like that. If you can give us a couple of examples.
For sure. I do a lot of humming first thing. I always feel like that's a great way to just like open up everything. So just like really deep, like as low as you can, like, just like very boring. But it's just like, just do that while you're like driving to the session in the morning in the car. I'll start with a lot of that. And then I sing Guns and Ships from Hamilton before like every session just to get my like articulators going. That's another one that I'll put in there too.
Yeah, kind of in the same vein, like lip trills, so that like scaling like that. Yeah.
That's exactly the same thing. I call them the bubbles, where I'd put my hands on my cheeks and I would go up and down the scales, just like you would do if you were about to sing or any kind of vocal, just to kind of open up the vocal cords and get them ready to go.
I guess I sort of do, because most of the things I have to do or have done have been, I don't know how to describe it. They've been sort of, I call it my tunnel, and I usually do things, so it just goes up and down, up and down. So I figured anything I hit is going to hit it somewhere in there. You know what I mean? I've warmed up something. But but that comes from my vocal singing training, really. It's just to open up what I, again, call a tunnel so that anything that comes in there that I have to use has been touched somehow. And then there's all of the other things, of course. You know, all those things.
Those weird ones that you see on TV of like every acting class. You're like, these people are insane. It's like, it's real. All of those things, they all help.
Cool, thank you. Hi, what's your name?
I'm Hannah. I was wondering, like, for somebody who wanted to, like, start, voice acting and stuff, like, how would you, like, start looking for, like, places looking for auditions or, voice demos or stuff like that?
In terms of the demos, do you mean specifically for animation or video games, or? Okay, for that kind of stuff, you're definitely gonna you're gonna want to be where the studios are. But yeah, you can submit to those places once you're there. If you wanted to just do commercials or any other kind of like narration or anything like that, you can submit to regional agencies all over the place, and you can have one in each region. Like I have 4. I have one in Atlanta, one in Colorado, one in San Francisco, and one in LA. And they each send me different auditions from those specific regions for commercial, sometimes video game, sometimes narration stuff. So it's a good way to, if you do have a demo ready to go and you feel like you're ready to have those opportunities laid out in front of you, it's a good way to just go to their websites, and they'll usually have a place where you can be like, submit here, and you can go about it that way.
I took classes personally and would get to know like casting directors and different studios and stuff that way. So eventually, they believed in me enough to be able to send me auditions. So it doesn't happen for everybody necessarily, but it is a good way for I think a lot of people to potentially get on people's radar.
Any other tips?
I don't know if I can add to that. I'm obviously not current anymore in voice or acting now. I work behind the camera, but with today's technology, I would think, and it may not work so much in the voice actor world, but there's all these sites like YouTube and things like that. I mean, listen, if Justin Bieber can get discovered off posting himself, you never know what could happen. Maybe you have a picture or something like that, or a character that you drew that you could voice and have your own YouTube channel. You never know where it's going to lead.
Thank
says
you
yes.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, my name's Greg. My question is specifically for Phillip. Hey, Philly, can you still do the voice?
This has been asked several times. See, there's this part when a boy goes through this time in his life, and it's, Fievel held on a really long time till I was about 16, and Fievel was truly just an intonation of my voice at 5 years old. I don't really think I could. I think if I did, it would be a really poor impersonation. But it was just my kind of upper register of who I was at the time. I really wish I could. Maybe then they would have made more than 2 movies. I don't know, behind a couple series. But no, I don't think I'd really give it good justice anymore. But I really do miss it. My kids have been asking me for a very long time. And even my wife, who's here in the audience, she asks me all the time. And it's never going to happen. And I'm never going to sing somewhere out there for her either. So 2 things. Not that I don't love her dearly. It's just... those are buried in the 5-0 closet.
Well, thanks for the memories.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Hi, what's your name?
My name is Addison, and my question I think might have already been answered, but it's about like local markets and things like that. Would doing, for instance, commercial voiceover, I've done acting, but I've done a little bit of commercial voiceover as well. Does that really help? Like, I mean, obviously financially and establishing oneself locally, but as far as making it into, say, if someday I'm able to scrounge up the funds to move to a place where the animation market's a little better, like, is that experience going to really help?
Help in terms of getting...
Everything, I guess, like making connections with people,
Absolutely.
Getting experience.
The biggest thing I would say, the reason to pursue commercials is, number one, it pays very well. Number one, 2, it's most of the voiceover work in terms of being at an agency. You're gonna get a lot more. There's more commercials being made in a day than there is an animated series or a video game. Right. And in order to get a good agent to take you seriously as an actor at one of the big agencies in town, you need to have a good commercial sound. And it's very rare that somebody would be like, this person is just incredible at video games and cartoons and stuff like that. We gotta represent them. It's gonna be a lot easier if you're gonna be like, this person has a great commercial sound, they know what they're doing, they have an awesome demo, so we gotta get them in with this agency, and then you will also be getting those animation, those video game opportunities as well. So it's definitely worth your time to pursue commercial as well.
And if my demo is pretty much commercial copy, is that going to be like a good thing to send out?
For sure. You wanna, I think you're definitely gonna want to have it be current. To really portray your skills at that point of where you're at the moment. Like, I think they say about every 2 years is when you're gonna wanna update, because you're gonna get way better in 2 years. You're gonna just be able to do a better job with the things. So I think make sure it's current, make sure it just puts you it paints you in a really nice light, and it just shows that you can do a great job at it, would be my things.
Yeah, new commercial demo is definitely more important than anything. I'm actually going through the same thing right now. I have an animation demo that I just got done for the first time, a professional animation demo done for the first time since I started, and I've been doing voiceover for like about 6 years now. And a friend of mine who's with a pretty good agency out in Los Angeles submitted my animation demo to her agent just to kind of listen to. And her agent was like, oh, well, she's good, but I want to hear a commercial demo. Like, we need to make sure, you know, she's somewhat competent at doing commercials. So definitely in the right spot doing commercials mostly right now. As for it, like, I think it could translate in some ways, but commercial styles are very different than like animation styles. So you want to make sure that you have training, I think, in animation as well, just to make sure that things are kind of all there. But yeah, I mean, I think doing commercials is definitely, you're heading in the right, you know, direction for sure.
Anything to add? Okay.
St. Louis hometown pride, though, right?
Oh, St. Louis?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, so that's, yeah.
Woohoo.
What they said is exactly right.
Thank you.
You're so positive.
It is. It really is, especially at St. Louis Market.
Hi, tell us your name.
I'm Katie. Are there any like? Thank you. Are there any like websites or places locally that we could like start voice acting?
There are the pay-to-play websites. I've had some experience in that starting out. So there's the Voice123, Voices.com, Voice Bunny. That's still around, yeah. Voice Bunny's still going strong. But yeah, I started out doing that kind of stuff. There are some weird things on there, like a lot of people say like, oh, it's killing the industry and stuff. But I feel like there's a lot of stuff on there that isn't like Google throwing up a thing on there for a very cheap amount of money. But there's a lot of stuff just in very specific different markets of like a high school marching band. We need the voice actor to say like a couple lines to like rally the troops and get them ready to go. It's like that kind of stuff that isn't going to go through a big agency or something like that. So there are some cool opportunities on those pay-to-play websites, and that's kind of where I started out. And it's just a good way of kind of training in a sense where it's like you put an audition out, sometimes you'll get like a it's been listened to, and sometimes it'll give you a this has been liked by the person, and sometimes you book it and it's like, okay, cool, so I know that my voice goes towards these kinds of things. Like I do university stuff really well, I do tech things really well, and fast food, so make sure I put those kinds of things on my demo. So it's kind of a good training ground in a sense. So but yeah, there's definitely websites to check out for that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
He's right.
Yeah, Billy.
Great, thank you. Hi, tell us your name.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Brad McQuarrie. Just a quick question. I've been doing improv for a while and professional wrestling before that. Is getting into the voice acting industry and trying to find representation, what are some red flags that someone needs to look out for? And then what are some really good, like, gold star moments, like, yeah, you definitely want this rep? And just trying to find an agency.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So I know a big red flag is if they want you to pay to be represented by them. That should never be a thing. They get paid their percentage when you book work. That's one thing that you should definitely not go into. In terms of gold stars, I would say just finding somebody who definitely has your best interest in mind and knows what you do well and can really sell you. That's one thing I really love about my agency is that I feel like they really want me to succeed and they talk me up when there's opportunities or like, ooh, we have a guy who'd be really great for this, you should look into this. I think that's a really, really important thing. And just having a sit-down meeting with these agencies and be like, I vibed with these people. These are good people, and it doesn't feel like gross. Like, just let your gut kind of lead you to this is a good opportunity or this isn't a good opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, now it's kind of cool because I can look from the other side of the perspective. So now I'm on the producerial side, hiring the talent. And I can tell you, like, you're going to hear, oh, you got to be with this agent, they're the best, but that doesn't matter anymore. I can tell you that sometimes the smallest and most quiet agent, if they're really good and they believe in your talents, they will push, and I will listen to them equally as I would as CAA or ICM, any of the big talent agents that are out there. I don't care if it's Joe's talent agency. If they push you and you've got the talent, you're going to be equally seen. Like you said, have someone strong, someone that believes in you, and constant contact. And for sure, that's a really good point that you point out, because there is a lot of, and they develop from sometimes modeling and talent schools that will charge you to be an agent, and that is a no-go. Now, you won't like the commission either at some point in time, because it adds up with your taxes, but that should be a no-go. They get paid when you get paid, and that's how it works.
Gotcha. The only thing I would add to that is whoever you're going to deal with, make sure they know what they're doing.
True.
Do you know what I mean? Because that's the first thing before you even get out there. They have to know what they're doing. And I think there's a lot of people out there, that, at least that I know of, who are, I don't want to call them charlatans completely, but it's an easy sell to tell someone like yourself, we got it, we know what you need, when they don't really know what they're doing. So you want to do that research and make sure whoever it is, if it's Joe's talent agency, that they know what they're doing so they can represent you, therefore, appropriately and to your benefit. And they're not depending on you to make their agency famous. You know what I mean?
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, thanks. So we've only got about 10 minutes left, so we got to hustle through these last series of questions if we can. Hi, tell us your name.
I'm Kyler. I was just wondering, how do you guys pull some of the emotions out during some of your recordings? Like I know with anime series, stuff like that, some movies and such, you have to pull some really deep, sad emotions or anger or stuff like that. How do you pull that out of you? Do you have to think about something? Or?
Well, I think that goes back to some of the things we've all touched on, which is just the actual craft of acting. Acting for a microphone, acting in front of people, acting for camera, film camera. It's acting, you know. And I think, to me, the basic thing of acting all comes from the same place. You might deliver it ultimately in a different way because of the specifics of whatever market and thing you're in. But you've got to do that's why I think, tell me your name, baby, I'm sorry.
Erica.
Erica. Erica said, get training. Go to an acting class, you know what I mean? Whether you end up shouting off the top of the roof somewhere as your acting exercise, go to the class so you learn how to access those things. And it's the only real way. You may have genuine talent that allows you to do that well and quickly, but knowing how to repeat it is technique. You have to learn how to do that. And then that will help you to access anger, humor, all those different things that may be within you, but you have to know how to do it. And when you get to something like voiceover work, you better be able to do it really quick.
That's right.
You know, you might get 6 weeks of rehearsal for a play, but they want it right now, you know. And that's a talent, and that's a thing you have to develop as to how to bring those things forward quickly and well.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Hi, tell us your name.
My name's Brian, and I wanted to know, I've been doing really crazy voices like Mushu and Oogie Boogie. But when I record it myself and play it back to me, I sound like I'm doing some sort of weird Sylvester Stallone. So I was wondering, is there some trick you use to make yourself on the recording sound like you do normally when you're listening to your own voice?
The one thing that is kind of weird is you aren't going to be the best judge of how it sounds because you're only going to hear yourself. So one thing that I get sent every once in a while is voice matches in the voiceover business. So it's like, hey, we need you to come in and be the voice of this famous person for like things in the movie. Like I was the voice of Max Kellerman in the Creed 2. He's one of the boxing announcers. And the guy, like the director comes up to me, he's like, dude, you sound just like the guy. And I'm like, really? Because I almost didn't send the audition in because I'm like, that just sounds like me. It doesn't, I didn't get it. And he's like, well, you can't hear it because your voice is too close. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. So, I mean, you are already hearing your voice so much that you're going to be like, that doesn't sound like the thing. It sounds like me. But you might play it for someone else and be like, oh, man, that sounds just like it. Good job. So yeah, don't be too hard on yourself.
Don't get too good at Oogie. I'm just saying.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And this may have to be our last question. Let's see what we can do.
How's it going, everybody? How
you doing?
My name's Bo. I keep on hearing a bunch of talk about like demos and things like that. But for somebody who hasn't done a demo, what are some examples of good things to put in demos for someone who wants to create one?
I think we touched on that a little bit
You did?
before. Let's
Like a good range of things, like different things you can do. Try to back away from impressions, because if you're doing an impression, likely chances are there's somebody already who's still alive doing that, and they don't really need that if they already have the person who's like known for doing that. So, but it's a good skill to have on hand, just in case I guess they need someone that's not available or something. But yeah.
And you can go to agencies' websites and listen to demos of like big name people and see like, okay, cool, I'll do that and that and that and that and that. So.
Cool, thanks.
Appreciate it.
All right, let's go ahead and take it real quick.
Yeah.
Well, Riku stole my initial question, so I had to come up with another one real quick. Does the quality of the mic matter when you're doing your voice demo?
Demo, yes.
Yes.
Yes, for
absolutely,
sure.
yeah.
Make sure you go to a quality demo producer when you're ready to throw down the money to get that, because if you put a subpar product in front of somebody, they're not going to take you seriously. So
Yeah. Absolutely.
do not record your demo on your iPhone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. So unfortunately, we do have to wrap up there. I'm so sorry.
Oh.
I'm so sorry. So, but lastly, do we have any upcoming projects? I know we've talked at length in our other panels, but anything that we can throw at everybody and just let them know, how can we follow you and go figure you out, and what else are you doing?
For sure. Season 2 and 3 of Rising of the Sheild Hero is coming out at some point. We don't know when, but we're excited that it's confirmed. And yeah, you can follow me at Billy Kametz on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter and Instagram as well. My username's Sunderica. It's a bad anime pun if you guys watch anime. So find me, yay!
Sort of same with me on the other side. Mine, Instagram's official Phillip Glasser. And on the producerial side, I got 2 things coming up on December 8th for all you Hallmark Christmas lovers. I have Christmas at Dollywood with Dolly Parton. Comes out. Please see it. You will cry, and you will never guess what happens at the end of a Hallmark movie. And next, I believe it's February, I have a great, great kids live action movie with Robert De Niro called The War with Grandpa. It's going to be Home Alone 2. It's really, really awesome, and De Niro knocks it out of the park.
I think it's next week, actually. We've been doing Nightmare Before Christmas in concert, so to speak. And what we really do is they show the film, and when the numbers come up, we come out and sing them live. And that's myself, Danny Elfman, Catherine O'Hara, and sometimes Paul Rubens, and so forth. And we've done 3 of them at the Hollywood Bowl in L.A., and we've done one at the, I can never remember the name of it. It's a big theater in Brooklyn. It's at the Arena Hall. It'll come to me. At any rate, but next week we go to Glasgow, Scotland, and London, England, and Dublin. And we do concerts in each of those places with the symphony orchestras there. And that's very exciting. I'm very excited about it. And it's going to be fun and great. And it just keeps the, I had no idea that, what do they know about Nightmare Before Christmas? And they said, oh, darling, they love it over there. You're absolutely massive. I was like, oh, okay, good, we'll go. But one thing I wanted to say before we wrap up, and this is just a general kind of homage thing. There was a wonderful, and I say this because of voiceover for us all, if I may. There was a wonderful actress. She was an Academy Award-winning actress, and her name was Mercedes McCambridge. And you're all very young, so you probably have never heard of her. Look her up, first of all. But by identification, she did the voice work in the film of The Exorcist. Have you seen The Exorcist? Yeah. Well, what really scares you isn't the pea soup, and it isn't necessarily, love her, Linda Blair, who's on screen as Reagan, the possessed little girl. It's the sound of that voice that you hear. And I think in all of any animation voices work that I've ever seen or heard, no one has exemplified exactly all those questions and all the things we've talked about more than this woman's performance. She should have won an Academy Award for the performance that she did as voice work. So if you're going to see The Exorcist anytime soon, and who isn't, don't you love it? Watch it again, but watch it with the idea of listening to that voice work, because it's absolutely amazing. And I had the good fortune to run into her in a mall in La Jolla, of all places, and I was afraid to go up to her and say anything, but anyway, I did, long story short. And I told her how much I appreciated her work and that I'd done voiceover and some things and blah, blah, blah. And she grabbed my arm and she said, "You understand." I thought, whoa, you know. But she also told me how, someone had asked a question, how she achieved some of the things that she did. She said they gagged her, they put her on the floor, they turned out the lights, they put a series of microphones on the floor and just let her writhe around so they could get wild lines and sounds to use in the film in general. And then, of course, there were the lines and so forth. So I always like to say to any group I speak to who are fans of voice work, please educate yourself to who she was. To me, she is probably the premier voice work person who has ever done anything like that. Okay, will you look her up? Mercedes Cambridge. There you go. Thank you.
Great. Well, speaking of just how incredibly indebted we are to all of you, thank you so much for your time and for all of your insights. Can we give them all another huge round of applause, please?
Thank you so much, guys.